Good afternoon. It is Friday, January the 8th of January. Can you believe we're at the end of the first week of January already? We're in another lockdown, but that doesn't mean that we can stop connecting. We can keep connecting with each other and we can keep learning from each other. It's my delight to welcome you today to episode 11 of Lessons in Leadership. I'm Mary Gregory, and our leader that we're going to be speaking to today is Sharon Gaskin. Hello, Sharon.
Hello, Mary. Good to see you.
Lovely to see you too. Now, Sharon and I know each other because we first met on a mastermind that was run by Penny Power, which well over a year ago now, actually. Seems like 5 minutes ago, but that's how it happens sometimes. But why I've invited Sharon here today is that she has established a business called Trainer Talk and the Trainers Training Company. And I think the lessons and the insights that she must have, which I'm really curious about, Sharon, which we're going to talk about in a minute, is establishing community. Because you have been, what I notice, I'm a member of your of Trainer Talk, which I really enjoy. I find it a very supportive, cheerful community to be part of. But it's that sense of community that you've established there. So I'm very curious to get into learning a bit more about how you got to be where you are and what caused you to start Trainer Talk in the first place. And just share us a bit of background to your journey so far.
Yeah, I would love to. So Trainer Talk has actually been, the Trainers Training Company has been in existence now since 2009. And it primarily started because a couple of things. One, I noticed that because I was a freelance trainer myself, had my own training business, and I was noticing that lots of trainers were coming to me and saying, "Oh, I'm thinking about becoming freelance, and I see that you're doing it. And how do you do it? How do you get clients and all that kind of thing?" And so, I found myself, going out for cups of coffee with people, and people were kind of asking me questions and things like that. And I just one of those things that I kind of like noticed that was happening quite a lot. And then the other thing that happened around about 2009 was that my son, who at the time was about 9, was playing a lot of tennis. And to cut a long story short, he was sort of whisked up to this high performance centre in Edgbaston, and it was a lot of, it was a high performance program that the LTA sort of put him through. And but it meant that I had to pick him up from school every day and, take him up there and stay with him all day. And so this was really starting to have an impact on my business because I couldn't, be traveling all around the country, delivering workshops and so on. So I sort of reached that sort of point where I just thought, you know what, I need to reinvent myself. And I was really lucky actually because 2009, although it sounds like an awful long time ago now, and it is a long time ago, was actually the time when online was just getting started. So all of a sudden we could start doing things like, there weren't even webinars in those days. There were something called instant teleseminars, but, we had Skype and, we could see people and all that kind of things. And, email marketing was just getting started. And I thought to myself, well, really, I really want to be working from home. I want to be doing stuff online so that I can, support Ryan with his tennis. And I kind of went back to that thought that I had about people asking me questions about how do they get started as a freelance trainer. And I put together this book, How to Launch Training Business in 30 Days, which is still on the website now. That was my first thing. I closed my other training business down and set up this one-page website, the Trainers Training Company.
Wow.
And that's really how it all started.
So I'm hearing there, it's about what really worked was you were tuned in to noticing what was coming towards you in terms of people's needs. So you recognized a need and a gap, but also you had a need yourself because of your son. So those two kind of synchronized, didn't they? And that then bore fruit in terms of you creating the organization. So when you set out back in 2009 and you look at how Trainer Talk and the Trainers Training Company is now, because it's a big network. I mean, there are hundreds of people that are members of your organization now. What do you think is the secret to the success that you've created here?
I'm not sure there is a secret because it's just been absolutely a lot of hard work, and I think things just kind of evolve really without you noticing it. So if we go back to sort of trainer talk, that really evolved as a membership and as a community. But it started off as an idea, just started off as a germ of an idea. And my germ of an idea was back in 2010 that I had been going to a lot of networking events, as you do.
Yeah.
And I found, I'm sure you've been to loads yourself, Mary, and I don't know about you, but I found that a lot of them were just, I don't know, completely sort of false environments. And, there was a lot of business card thrusting and people selling you stuff, and also a lot of stuff around, how's business for you? You get asked that question a lot. And, the temptation is always to say, yes, really great. How about you? And then the other person will go, oh, yeah, things are great. And you get into this. And oftentimes, particularly in the early days of my business, things weren't going really great, and I was figuring out what to do, and I didn't have any clients and stuff. So, and what I really wanted to say was, oh, somebody please help me, because I don't know what I'm doing. But I found that in those environments, it wasn't really I didn't feel comfortable doing that.
Yes.
So I wanted to I had this idea of creating an event that would be for trainers, so that everybody, talked the same language, they were all in the same boat, but also that people could, feel in that safe space. So when they were at the event, they could say, oh, I'm having a few challenges right now, can you help me?
Yes.
So that's how it started really, and that was always my vision to do that. So I started creating these events, and people started to come along to them, which was great. And I was going along, and people were really enjoying them, and I was being a typical trainer, where you know yourself, Mary, when you've run an event and it's gone really well, or a course, and you love it, don't you? You get that really nice feeling where everybody writes their happy sheets and says nice stuff about you and the course, and we love that. That's where we get our energy from, and that was happening at the Trainer Talk events. But what wasn't happening was that I wasn't making any money out of these events, and I wasn't facing up to that, because I didn't want to really look at that. I just wanted to, everyone's having a good time, and that kind of thing. And that was the missing bit really for me. It was at the end of 2015, I think it was, that I thought, right, Sharon, put your big girl pants on, which is one of the things we talk about a lot.
It is one of the sayings in the community.
Look at your numbers. And I looked at the numbers, and I was really shocked to discover, I mean, I kind of knew it, but there it was in black and white, that for 4 events, and all the work that had gone into those events, that I'd made £1,000. So,
Wow.
it was like, oh, this can't really go on. And the other thing that wasn't happening, Mary, and this was the thing that was really sort of fitted in with my vision, I had a really clear vision about creating this sense of community, as I've said, where people were in that safe space. And that wasn't really happening either, and the reason that it wasn't happening was that people were having a good time, but they weren't necessarily coming back. And the reason why they weren't coming back is that because trainers being trainers, a lot of them are very, what if work comes up on that day, and I won't put it in my diary, and they and then work did come up on that day. And because they weren't prioritising it, they never came back to Trainer Talk, or they might have come back 2 years later or something. And that wasn't creating a community, because you can't have community without commitment from people, because it's only when people come back again and again that the relationships are built up, and that's when all the magic really happens.
Yes.
So that wasn't happening either. So I thought, oh my goodness. So I thought, right, I'm going to have to turn this into a membership, which was what I did. And it was when I turned it into a membership that people like yourself, Mary, you get all your events in 4 years, so you come, you put them in your diary and you come to them, and that's really when all the magic really starts.
So there's a real lesson there as well then about when people have signed the deal and they've actually paid money for something,
Yeah,
they show up. They show up and they participate much
absolutely.
more loudly than if they hadn't. So there's
Yeah,
a real message there about how important it is to
yeah,
value what you're offering people and to
yeah,
make sure people do pay what that service is worth there.
yeah,
So
absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely.
There is so much that I mean, I want you to know what you've just shared, the whole story of that right from the beginning. There is so much richness in that because at the beginning, what you noticed in networking events was the lack of psychological safety. And psychological safety is the big thing at the moment, isn't it? You know,
Yeah,
organizations are looking for how can they create it? They want to have teams that are psychologically safe. And what I hear you did was you actually created a platform or a foundation of psychological safety in the events that you started to run that meant that people could show up and be themselves. And then
mm,
once you got that in place, you then, having learnt the hard way, I guess, through not making a lot of money
oh
from
yeah,
it, you
absolutely.
then put in place, we need commitment as well here. And once you got the commitment, that created a really I mean, I've experienced your community, so I know that it's an incredibly supportive and safe community to be part of. It's perfectly okay to go into your community and say, listen, I don't know about this, or I'm feeling scared, or I'm feeling nervous. And there will be heaps of support that come back towards you. So two really pertinent points there in terms of community building, but also business building as well, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think the question you asked me originally was about, what have you learned, and what's the secret? And I don't think there is any particular secret. I do think, as I say, things evolve. But I think as things evolve and as you notice things and you notice changes and trends and differences, and that you just, and that you have ideas, I think that you shouldn't be scared to just run with those ideas and just take them forward. I mean, I
Yes.
always, I'm a big believer in that. I always say there are no real failures in business. There are only experiments. And
Yeah, absolutely.
I can experiment, and I fully accept that. Some things are going to work and some things are not. But at least, yeah, at least you've tried them,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
so
I think the other thing I get from you is also your passion. So you were really passionate about it, which is what, you say a lot of hard work, but actually, if you hadn't had the passion and it wasn't playing to things that were important to you, your values,
yeah.
then you wouldn't have persisted with it in the way that you have.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. I mean, I do, and again, this is another thing that I feel passionately about, but it's something that I think I've come to sort of understand over the years, and I've kind of really grown into it. And that is really the importance of just enjoying your business and enjoying what you do, because
Yes.
two questions I always ask myself now with anything I do in my business are: number one, is it easy? And number two, is it joyful? And if it isn't, then I just don't do it,
Yeah.
or give it to somebody else or whatever, because I just believe really passionately that I think a lot of business owners, they don't realize how much control they have over their own businesses. And it's just something that came to me. I'm a big fan of Michael Neal, and I do all his courses, and just, he has helped me enormously over the last couple of years, particularly in the COVID situation, with his philosophies around business and thinking and mindset and stuff. And one of the things he said, about a couple of years ago, there was a revelation to me. He said, he'd done this survey of different, business, successful business owners and leaders and all this kind of thing. And he concluded, and he asked them a question about, what they attribute their success. And he concluded that unanimously, the one thing that they all had in common was that they had all stopped doing things that they didn't want to do. And when he said that, I was like, I was like, this is so simple. This is so simple,
It
but
is really simple.
total sense. It makes total sense.
Yeah.
Really, that really stuck with me, and I really adopted it. And I encourage everybody that I work with to encourage that same, you know,
Yeah.
because, you know, people, it is your business. So why should you be doing things that you don't enjoy doing? You know, it's kind of like,
Exactly. Do you know, you're reminding me a bit of, I interview leaders every week. So I was interviewing Oliver Johnson just before Christmas. I don't know whether you saw the interview, but he was talking about less but better.
yeah,
And rather than setting up New Year's resolutions, thinking about how do you want to feel every day when you wake up.
yeah,
And when we talked about less but better in the relationship to executives and being at work and running your business, it was very much about what you're saying is that if you're doing stuff you're not enjoying, you're probably working at the wrong level. It's a bit like if you've got too much on your plate, you're not working at the right level for the role that you and the responsibility that you've got. And I'd see a real connection there that if it's not bringing you joy either, then that's also a really big indication that you're not necessarily working at the right level, because you're not working within your capability. You're working, doing something that's beyond, you know, that's not, it might have been your capability once upon a time, but it isn't anymore. You're good at something else now. So there's a real sense of making sure you connect into doing less, but doing the things you're really good at and the things that really bring you joy is what I'm hearing.
it's just so important, and it just makes a massive difference. A massive difference to, you know, to your outlook and the way you run your business.
Yeah. So it's the question then that begs is what you need to let go of. You know, so, and one way to judge that is, if this doesn't bring me joy, why am I doing it? Should somebody else be doing it?
Absolutely. Or should you be doing it at all? You know, just get rid of it completely, you know?
Yeah. Brilliant. Okay. So, so before we move on to your sort of key leadership lesson, I just want to ask about, because Trainer Talk has grown, and there's a trainer company, there's Trainer Talk. You have evolved over the years.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's Lily, my dog. The other dog's going nuts as well. One of those days. I'm just going to, you know, she's all right. I think she's all right. Didn't expect that to happen. What I was going to ask was, you know, in terms of how it's evolved, how did you work? Because I'm thinking about agility, how that's such a big thing at the moment, particularly in these uncertain times. Yeah. So how did you work with the fact that, oh, this is emerging now as something that we could do business with or provide a service around? How did you work with that uncertainty and not necessarily knowing at the beginning this is what you're going to be providing, but it is what you're providing now? Can you say a bit more about that?
Sort of. Sorry, can you? I don't really understand the question.
So yeah, lots of distractions going on here, so probably not the clearest question. It's about looking at, we're dealing with a lot of uncertainty at the moment, and the whole talk about how to be agile as a leader these days. And I've seen your business has evolved over the years, and you've added different products in, and you've created things, and you've developed things in response to your clients and to your marketplace. How did you develop that agility and that creativity, I suppose, Sharon?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not entirely sure. I just I think a lot of it comes from intuition, to be honest. You know, I'm a big believer in intuition, and if something doesn't feel right, then it generally isn't. And conversely, if something feels right, then it generally is, you know? And I think a good example would be, if you sort of wind back to March. So my one of my signature programs, so how to create a successful and profitable training business. I started life as a one-day workshop, a live workshop. And then about 4 years ago, I changed it into an online workshop, because I realized that there were a lot of things that I just, I couldn't get into a one-day workshop. So I did it over 6 weeks, and I did it online. So that would give more people the opportunities to come along during the program. And I tended to do this twice a year, so sort of once in the spring and once in the autumn. And go in March 2020, that would be the time that I would, ordinarily be running this 6-week online program. Well, as you know what happened in March, and I kind of sat there, and I thought to myself, oh God, and I had that feeling in my stomach of this isn't right, and thought, how can I, send an email out inviting everybody to come on this course, how to create a successful and profitable training business when there is no training, because at that time everybody was going, oh God, I've got no work. My diary's collapsed, the training industry's collapsed and all this kind of thing. So I thought, I can't send this. It just doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
And so I almost didn't do anything at all. And then I was thinking about it, and then I just was observing what was happening around me, with obviously everybody, wanting to sort of, to do online training and virtual training and so on. And also there was a lot of people at home that all of a sudden, again, if you go back to March time, the big thing that was coming through to me then was people suddenly had the time. And because they had the time, they were going, right, okay, maybe when we do go back to normal, maybe I don't want to do that anymore. Maybe I want to run my business in a different way. And so I thought, you know what, this is probably a good time for people to kind of take stock of where they are in their business, as well as learn about online training. So I thought, aha, okay. So what happened was, as you know, because you run the program, I repositioned that program, and it became how to create a future fit training business. And in that program, I still talked about the marketing, but from the perspective of taking stock of your business. And then obviously Jeanette came in and she did the online training side. And so, but that all started as an intuitive feeling that original program just wasn't right for what was happening now. So I had to tweak it to take account of.
Yeah, I really love that, because I think we so often get attached to the cerebral brain, our thinking, and actually intuition, our gut brain, as it were, and our heart brain are so often negated in favor of being logical and practical and thinking, what do I need to do next? So trusting your intuition in that way. And also what I'm hearing is what you're really good at is just getting present to what you're actually feeling at that moment in time, and also observing and noticing what is happening around you before you act. I think that's a real skill that you've got there, Sharon. So that's a lesson for all of us, is like, don't necessarily rush in on what you think you should be doing, but actually stay with what are you feeling here? What are you noticing? And what's your gut telling you?
Yeah. And I do think that intuition is kind of underrated really in business.
Yeah.
I do think it always serves me well.
Yes.
I think I would probably in the early days of my business maybe wasn't confident enough to trust my intuition in the way that I am now. And now, because I know now that all the years of experience I've had in business now, I know that it's always right. So
yeah, absolutely. And often it's the thing that will free us and take us forward. And sometimes we get caught up with our thinking and in our heads, and that's where our fear lives. That's where our ego lives as well. So that stops us, that holds us back. So it's like, trust your gut more. That's what I'm hearing.
So my secrets are probably, as you say, just trust your gut. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, because they're only experiments. And what was the other? There was one that I started. And is it easy? Is it joyful? Only do things that you don't want to do. That stop doing things that you don't want to do. That's
fantastic. That's a really lovely summary. Thank you. So as we conclude our conversation today, we've just gone into our third lockdown here in the UK. What advice would you pass on to people, maybe about the lockdown, or just generally, what advice would you like to pass on?
Well, it's a funny thing. As you know, I moved to Wales last February. So February so we've been here almost a year now, and in that year we've had 3 weeks of normality, which is incredible, really, when you think about it. I moved to a new area with all these plans of, exploring new places and meeting new people, and kind of none of that has happened really. So it has been, a very, very challenging year. And we have, here in Wales, we've experienced more lockdowns than any part of the UK. We've literally, this latest one started on the 20th of December, so we've been in it for quite some time. So It's been, it's been pretty challenging. So, but I think the thing I've learned over the last year is that really there are always positives that you can take from any situation, and that really came home to me. Actually, I did so with my own mastermind group. I run a mastermind group called Transform, which is largely for Trainer Talk members. And at the end of December, on our development day there, we did a review of the year, and I asked them all sorts of different questions about 2020. And it was actually quite emotional for, people found that quite an emotional exercise. Well, and I did the exercise as well. We all did it together. But what was amazing for me personally when I did that exercise is actually how much positive stuff did happen in 2020.
Yeah.
Only when I really explored that and wrote it down, and actually wrote down in my notebook, so many positive things in 2020. Who knew? Because until I really actually thought about it. And so I do think it sounds glib and it sounds trite, and it's the kind of thing that everybody says, but I do think there are, there have been lots of positives, and certainly in the Trainer Talk community, yourself, it was a classic change curve that we saw there. And what we saw in March was people right down at the bottom of that, and the anger and the fear and the shock and the upset and all that stuff. But you saw people, climb out of that, and now we're in a situation where people are doing things that they never thought that they would do. Mary, I never thought I would see you talking to people on StreamYard. The transformation in you has been amazing over this last year. People have had to get to grips with things, because they've had to. To make business work. And people are now going, do you know what? I don't want to go back to traveling, and I don't want to go back to so much face-to-face.
Exactly. So there is so much. It's so easy for us to be overshadowed by the doom and gloom, isn't it? So what I'm hearing here is just really make sure we focus on what we are succeeding at and what we are achieving as well. Absolutely. So important.
Always positives in the least expected of places.
Absolutely. And you're quite right. I would never have started Lessons in Leadership probably if we hadn't been locked down. So it was like, I want to find out about leaders. I want to create a learning community. Let's make it happen. So great. Oh, Sharon, thank you so much for today. There is so much that you've shared and so much that's useful in terms of what we can all learn in terms of leadership and being leaders ourselves in our own journey in our lives. I very much look forward to continuing the journey with you. And thank you so much just for showing up and being you today.
You are most welcome anytime.
Oh, lovely. Okay, so that's episode 11 with Sharon completed. Do join us next week for episode 12, where we have the co-founders of Sister Snog, which is a wonderful women's networking organisation and really all about sisterhood. So do join us to hear more about their journey in creating their fabulous organisations as well. See you next Friday, 12 noon. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.